Thanks, Dina and Ricky. Good evening, everyone. I'm Alma Angeles for NET25 World News. On tonight's headlines. The Philippines is taking a firm stand in our own waters. Our Coast Guard has just revealed they had to deploy a vessel and even an aircraft to challenge a Chinese research ship spotted inside our exclusive economic zone off the coast of Ilocos.
Your vessel is within our exclusive economic zone. Its irregular track and movement are not consistent with the freedom of navigation.
President Trump is taking aim at foreign film production. He's announced plans for a massive 100% tariff on imported movies, citing concerns about unfair competition and even national security.
Have stolen our movie in this, and I'm saying if they're not willing to make a movie inside the United States, then we should have a tariff on movies that come in. And not only that, governments are actually giving big money. I mean, they're supporting them financially. So that's sort of a threat to our country in a sense.
And the news starts now. First, closer to home, we have some tragic news to report out of our Ninoy Aquino International Airport. Yesterday, a vehicle crashed near the entrance of Terminal 1, resulting in the deaths of 2 people, including a young child. The incident occurred when a black SUV crashed through the outer railing and into the walkway near the entrance of the Ninoy Aquino International Airport's Terminal 1. And those killed were a 29-year-old male and a 5-year-old girl, according to the Department of Transportation. Now, CCTV footage reviewed by authorities showed that the driver had just dropped off a passenger before the incident. He said the driver was seen assisting the passenger with unloading luggage, after which the passenger walked toward the terminal entrance, and shortly after, the SUV suddenly accelerated. Dizon urged the public not to speculate, saying the investigation was ongoing. Dizon also vowed to overhaul the driver licensing system,
because the system is broken. Today, I will sign a department order ordering mandatory drug testing for all drivers of public conveyance vehicles. The second, I have asked LTFRB and LTO to revise the maximum number of hours, consecutive hours na magmamaneho ang mga driver. Currently, it is 6 hours. I am asking them to reduce it to 4. This is consistent with other countries like the European Union and some countries in Asia like Vietnam, which is 4 hours, consecutive hours. I am asking the LTO, together with the LTFRB, to really make roadworthiness checks.
In other news tonight, President Marcos Jr. is heading to Kuala Lumpur later this month for a crucial meeting of Southeast Asian leaders. Malacanang has confirmed he'll be participating in the 42nd ASEAN Summit set for May 26th to the 27th. Southeast Asian leaders will gather to tackle urgent economic and security challenges facing our region. Malacanang said President Marcos will focus on boosting economic cooperation and addressing security concerns within ASEAN, especially given current uncertainties. He recently spoke with Malaysian Prime Minister Anwar Ibrahim, the current ASEAN chair, about these critical issues. The summit will also involve high-level meetings and the signing of the ASEAN Community Vision 2045 as leaders chart a collective path forward. Malaysia takes over the ASEAN chair next year, focusing on inclusivity and regional partnerships. The Philippines is taking a firm stand in our own waters. Our Coast Guard has just revealed they had to deploy a vessel and even an aircraft to challenge a Chinese research ship spotted inside our exclusive economic zone off the coast of Ilocos. Take a look.
They
According to the Philippine Coast Guard, this Chinese research vessel, the Tansua 3, was detected entering our EEZ on May 1st. The Coast Guard said their movements looked suspicious, suggesting they were conducting marine scientific research without our permission, which is a clear violation of sovereign rights. So what did the Coast Guard do? Well, they launched a maritime law enforcement operation, basically telling the Chinese vessel they needed to explain themselves and stop whatever they were doing.
Your vessel is within our exclusive economic zone. Its irregular track and movement are not consistent with the freedom of navigation. Rather, they are indicative of the conduct of marine scientific research in violation of the sovereign rights of the Philippines. You are hereby commanded to stop your illegal activities, declare your intention.
During the operations, they even spotted a manned deep-sea submersible being retrieved by the Chinese ship. It's called the Deep Sea Warrior and can go down thousands of meters for exploration. They also saw the Chinese recovering some unidentified yellow equipment likely used for this research. The Coast Guard is saying point blank that this activity proves China was conducting illegal marine scientific research within our EEZ without any legal right to do so. Senatorial aspirant Rodante Marco is set to conduct his meeting de Advance at the Philippine Arena in Bocaue, Bulacan. In addition to the Philippine Arena, the Philippine Sports Stadium will also be opened to accommodate attendees. The event is scheduled to commence at 4 p.m. and will conclude at 7 p.m. The gathering is open to all who wish to attend. Previously, the event was planned to be held at the Quezon City Memorial Circle on May 10. However, due to anticipated heavy traffic and a large number of supporters, the Quezon City government issued a traffic advisory. To avoid causing inconvenience to motorists and to better accommodate the expected crowd, the venue was moved to the Philippine Arena complex. Heavy traffic is expected due to the anticipated influx of supporters. President Trump is taking aim at foreign film production. He's announced plans for a massive 100% tariff on imported movies, citing concerns about unfair competition and even national security. Now, he said he was authorizing the U.S. Trade Representative to process the institution of the tariff because the United States movie industry is dying a very fast death due to other countries offering incentives to attract filmmakers and studios.
U.S. President Donald Trump ordered a new 100% tariff on all movies made outside the U.S. on Sunday, claiming Hollywood is dying a very fast death. In a Truth Social post, he said other countries luring productions away with tax breaks were to blame, saying, quote, "This is a concerted effort by other nations and therefore a national security threat."
Movie tariffs, what they've done is other nations have been stealing the movie-making capabilities from the United States. And I said to a couple of people, what do you think? I've done some very strong research over the last week. And we're making very few movies now. Hollywood is being destroyed. Now, you have an incompetent, grossly incompetent governor that allowed that to happen. So I'm not just blaming other nations, but other nations, a lot of them, have stolen our movie industry. And I'm saying, if they're not willing to make a movie inside the United States, then we should have a tariff on movies that come in. And not only that, governments are actually giving big money. I mean, they're supporting them financially. So that's sort of a threat to our country in a sense. And
Trump said the order was set to take effect immediately and that he'd begun authorizing agencies like the Commerce Department to begin enforcing it. Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick responded with a simple, "We're on it," on X. Neither gave further details as to how the tariff would work, whether it includes streaming platforms, theater releases, or both, or how the value of a film would be decided in order to calculate a tariff. Hollywood executives were scrambling Sunday night to make sense of it. The Motion Picture Association, which represents major studios, had no immediate comment. Trump has made reviving the U.S. film industry part of his political agenda. In January, he appointed actors Jon Voight, Sylvester Stallone, and Mel Gibson to help bring Hollywood back, quote, "bigger, better, and stronger." According to research firm ProdPro, in 2023, about half of spending by U.S. producers on TV and movie projects with budgets over $40 million went outside the U.S. All major studios, from Disney to Netflix, have filmed abroad in places like Canada and the UK to cash in on tax breaks.
And as President Trump's proposed tariffs send ripples through the global film industry, two nations are already vowing to fight back. Australia and New Zealand, both major players in attracting Hollywood productions, are making it clear they won't take this move lying down. Take a look. These countries have become prime locations for big-budget movies, offering attractive tax incentives and lower production costs. But President Trump's argument that these very incentives are killing the American film industry has sparked strong reactions from down under. Australian Home Affairs Minister Tony Burke has already stated nobody should be under any doubt that we will be standing up unequivocally for the rights of the Australian screen industry. He confirmed he's been in direct contact with Screen Australia, the government body that supports the nation's film and TV sector. New Zealand Prime Minister Christopher Luxon echoed that sentiment, saying the government is awaiting further details but will be a great advocate, great champion of their film industry. The stakes are high. Australia's film and television sector is a multi-billion-dollar industry, and New Zealand relies heavily on U.S. revenue. Both countries have invested significant sums in tax incentives to attract major productions like Marvel's Thor, Love and Thunder, and Godzilla vs. Kong. The question now is whether these nations can effectively counter President Trump's proposed tariffs and protect their thriving film industries. The United States is stepping back from its role as chief mediator in the Ukraine-Russia peace talks. Washington now says it will no longer fly around the world at the drop of a hat to mediate meetings between the two sides, urging Russia and Ukraine to meet directly and work out their differences. Take a look.
I really don't believe that any person, of the 8 billion people in the world, I don't think anybody could have gotten this deal done other than Donald J. Trump. When I say this deal, I mean getting these guys to actually propose a peace settlement, but it's going to be up to the Russians and the Ukrainians. Now that each side knows what the other's terms for peace are, it's going to be up to them to come to an agreement and stop this brutal conflict. It's not going anywhere, Brett. It's not going to end anytime soon.
The U.S. State Department echoed that message, saying Ukraine and Russia must now present concrete proposals for peace and that America's contribution to the process is changing. Here's State Department spokesperson Tammy Bruce.
Our style will change. The methodology of how we contribute to this will change in that we will not be the mediators. That is what I mentioned on Tuesday, and the nature of how this would change is we certainly were still committed to it and will help and do what we can, but we are not going to fly around the world at the drop of a hat to mediate meetings. That it is now between the two parties, and now is the time that they need to present and develop concrete ideas about how this conflict is going to end. It's going to be up to them.
The shift comes after Russia rejected the latest U.S. peace proposal, which did not recognize Russian control over seized Ukrainian territory. Russian forces currently occupy about 1/5 of Ukraine. The U.S. recently signed a rare earth minerals deal with Ukraine, granting American access to critical resources. Shortly after, President Trump authorized a new round of weapons deliveries to Kiev. But with little progress on the peace front and both sides holding firm, Washington said it will continue to support Ukraine, but the responsibility for ending the war now lies squarely with Moscow and Kiev. The war in Ukraine continues to escalate, with Russian President Vladimir Putin now asserting Russia's resolve to push the conflict to what he calls a logical conclusion. His comments come as the war, now in its third year, has taken a devastating toll. Take a look. Since Russia's invasion in February 2022, the conflict has become Europe's largest ground war since World War II, and a major flashpoint between Moscow and the West. Hundreds of thousands of soldiers have been killed or injured, and the humanitarian crisis is immense. President Putin's comments were featured in a state television marking his 25 years as Russia's leader, titled Russia, Kremlin, Putin 25 Years. Speaking beside a portrait of Tsar Alexander III, he addressed concerns about nuclear escalation.
They wanted to provoke us, as you said it yourself. They wanted us to make mistakes. There was no need to use the weapons you spoke about, and I hope they will not be required. We have enough strength and means to bring what was started in 2022 to a logical conclusion with the outcome Russia requires.
The conflict has drawn the attention of U.S. President Donald Trump, who has repeatedly called for an end to what he describes as a bloodbath, framing the war as a proxy conflict between the U.S. and Russia.
We've had some good conversations on Russia and Ukraine over the weekend, over the last few days actually, but we've had some very good conversations on Russia and Ukraine. There's a lot of hatred there, I will tell you, between the two parties and between even the generals. I mean, there's a tremendous amount of hatred, but we've had some very good discussions over the last few days.
The situation remains highly volatile, with both sides entrenched and the potential for further escalation a constant concern. The international community continues to watch closely as this war in Ukraine enters a critical phase. And we're also seeing some military movements in South Asia. Against a backdrop of already heightened tensions between Pakistan and India, over the weekend, Pakistan's military announced it conducted a training launch of a surface-to-surface missile. Take a look. This video, released by the Pakistan's military media wing, shows the missile being launched from an undisclosed location. Following the launch, officers can be heard chanting slogans of national pride and religious affirmation. The military confirmed it was a successful training launch of their Abdali weapon system, which they say has a range of about 450 kilometers. Now, this missile test comes at a particularly sensitive time, as we know tensions between Pakistan and India have been running high following that deadly attack on tourists in Kashmir last week, which tragically killed 26 people. India has pointed the finger squarely at Islamabad for that attack. Pakistan has vehemently denied any involvement in the Kashmir attack, but has also claimed it has credible intelligence that India is planning military action.
Let me underline that Pakistan does not seek escalation. This has been made clear by the political leadership of Pakistan and at all levels. At the same time, we are fully prepared to defend our sovereignty and territorial integrity. Should India resort to aggression, Pakistan will exercise its inherent and legitimate right to self-defense as enshrined in the UN Charter.
Meanwhile, just the day before Pakistan's missile test, India's Air Force conducted a significant training exercise of its own. On Friday, the Indian Air Force showcased its capabilities by landing a range of fighter jets, including Rafales, Jaguars, and Sukhois, on an emergency airstrip built along a highway in northern Uttar Pradesh state. They even landed a C-130J Super Hercules transport plane on this 3.5-kilometer stretch of the Ganga Expressway, which is equipped for night landings. The exercise, which took place just 10 days after the Kashmir attack, can certainly be seen as a demonstration of India's military readiness. It's worth noting that tensions between the two nuclear-armed neighbors have been escalating, with India accusing Pakistan of supporting terrorism in Kashmir, leading to these recent military posturings on both sides. And we're following some concerning developments out of the Middle East. Just recently, a missile fired by Yemen's Houthi rebels landed alarmingly close to Israel's main international airport near Tel Aviv, causing quite a stir. Thomas I. Likeness for more.
You can see the missile strike on the screen captured by CCTV cameras. That attack at Ben Gurion Airport left hundreds of panic-stricken passengers grounded. As the sirens sounded, people took cover in the terminal. Houthi military spokesman Yahya Saree quickly claimed responsibility for the attack. Saree warned international airlines to rethink about scheduling flights to Ben Gurion, saying it is no longer safe.
The missile force of the Yemeni Houthi armed forces carried out a military operation targeting Ben Gurion Airport in the occupied Jaffa area with a hypersonic ballistic missile, which successfully hit its target, by the grace of God. The results of the operation were as following: the failure of the American and Israeli interception systems to intercept the missile, the escape of more than 3 million Zionists fleeing to shelters, and the complete suspension of airport operations for more than an hour.
Swift reaction from Israel. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu condemning the attack, and he's promising that Israel will retaliate. He adds Iran had a hand in the missile strike.
We will not tolerate it. We will take very strong action against them. And we always remember that they act with their patron Iran's direction and support. We will do what we need to do to take care of our security, to respond effectively, and to give Iran a due warning that this cannot continue.
Ambulance service officials say they took 8 people to hospital with mild to moderate injuries. The missile created a huge crater, and you can see here just how close that strike came to the airport. It forced airport officials to suspend operations for several hours. A string of airlines canceled flights, leaving frustrated travelers stranded.
I'm afraid it's going to be very difficult today to go back to France because all European carriers, from what I see on the information, have cancelled. Lufthansa have cancelled, Swiss have cancelled, Brussels, so no connection is possible.
It's disturbing time, and we understand what's going on. But at the end of the day, the life here should go on, and we expect the foreign airlines to understand that and continue their flights.
You do feel like it's getting closer and closer and become personally affecting you, but at the end, you get used to it.
Sunday's attack represented a rare failure in Israel's Iron Dome missile defense system, the military citing a technical issue with the interceptor that was launched toward the incoming missile. The attack came as Israeli ministers had been reported to be close to signing off on plans to expand the military operation in Gaza. Fighting in Gaza resumed in March following that 2-month truce, prompting the Houthis to hit Israel with more missiles. Efforts to revive the ceasefire have so far failed. Thomas I. Likeness, NET25 World News.
Now, it seems the political ripples from the United States can travel far. In Australia's national election, voters have returned Anthony Albanese to power. And analysts suggest a key factor was the opposition leaders' perceived similarities in a certain president, and that is President Trump. Arlene Ocampo has more.
This is what the front pages of the newspapers looked like yesterday. Although the center-left Labour Party, led by Albanese, had been trailing the opposition Conservatives in the public opinion polls for the last 9 months, he pulled out a victory. People did not like the way the Albanese government handled inflation. But things changed when the Conservatives proposed slashing the federal workforce, something that sounded too much like U.S. President Donald Trump's administration. Then came Trump's tariff announcement, which disrupted the global economy. Those things sent voters back to the Labour Party. Albanese says Australians voted for Australian values.
In this time of global uncertainty, Australians have chosen optimism and determination. Australians have chosen to face global challenges the Australian way, looking after each other while building for the future.
Political science professor John Warhurst says Conservative leader Peter Dutton drove away voters because he sounded too much like the American president.
Been a problem with Peter Dutton's getting too close to some of the themes that Donald Trump has introduced into American domestic politics. The so-called anti-woke theme, anti-diversity. He's made some comments there. He's talked about large cuts to the federal public service, which echoed to some extent what Elon Musk has been doing in the United States. Now, these were only faint echoes of what has happened in the United States, but Peter Dutton and his team found himself found themselves, and Peter Dutton himself found himself, unable to break free of the association with Donald Trump.
Warhurst says Trump will continue to have an influence on how elections in other countries turn out. And he says that influence will not be helpful to right-wing candidates.
And I think political leaders around the world it will be very risky for them to identify themselves too strongly with Donald Trump, even with his style or with his strongman, alleged strongman style.
For Albanese, top items on the agenda include a visit to Washington for discussions on U.S. tariffs and defense matters. He'll also work with Asian and European allies to reduce reliance on the U.S. Arlene Ocampo for NET25 World News.
The news continues here on NET25. We'll be right back. It's the end of an era in the business world. Over the weekend, the legendary Warren Buffett announced he'll be stepping down as CEO of Berkshire Hathaway later this year, handing the reins to his vice chairman, Greg Abel. Take a look.
Warren Buffett on Saturday said he will step down as CEO of Berkshire Hathaway at the end of the year. During the company's annual shareholder meeting in Omaha, 94-year-old Buffett said it was time for Vice Chairman Greg Abel to take over the reins. Buffett said Abel hadn't been aware of his plans prior to the announcement, though he had told his children about his decision. It caps a remarkable 60-year run where Buffett transformed Berkshire from a failing textile company into a trillion-dollar conglomerate. The company boasts nearly 200 businesses, from Geico Car Insurance to the BNSF Railroad and Dairy Queen ice cream. Buffett said he had zero intention of selling any of his Berkshire stock, nearly all of which will be donated after his death. Berkshire's ever-growing cash hoard reached over $347 billion at the end of March. The meeting comes amid a roller coaster start to the year from markets, which have reacted to uncertainty over trade policies as the Trump administration imposes tariffs. Buffett started the day by telling shareholders that trade should not be a weapon, and the United States would be better off if other countries shared its prosperity. 62-year-old Abel has been a Berkshire vice chairman since 2018.
Authorities in Brazil say they've uncovered a chilling bomb plot, mainly targeting what police called the LGBTQIA+ public. Take a look.
Police in Brazil said on Sunday they'd foiled a bomb plot targeting a Lady Gaga concert in Rio de Janeiro that drew more than 2 million people to the city's Copacabana beach the day before.
Desde segunda-feira, os nossos policiais, a nossa inteligência.
Police Secretary Philip Cury told reporters that officers had learned of a plan to use homemade explosives and Molotov cocktails during Lady Gaga's May 3rd show, mainly targeting what he called the LGBTQIA+ public. The investigation was based on a report by the ministry's Cyber Operations Lab following a tip-off from Rio State Police Intelligence. It uncovered what police described as digital cells encouraging violent behavior among teenagers using coded language and extremist symbolism. A man described as the group's leader was arrested in the southern state of Rio Grande do Sul for illegal possession of a firearm, while a teenager in Rio de Janeiro was detained for storing child pornography. Police said one of the suspects claimed Lady Gaga had a, quote, Satanist religious inclination, and believed she planned to kill a child or a baby during her show. According to the Rio City Hall, 2.1 million people attended the concert of the American pop icon.
Alcatraz, the notorious island prison in the heart of San Francisco Bay, once home to some of America's most infamous criminals, could be seeing a new chapter. President Trump has announced a directive to the Federal Bureau of Prisons to rebuild and reopen the facility. Take a look.
U.S. President Donald Trump has called for the reopening and expansion of the infamous prison, Alcatraz. In a post on Truth Social Sunday, he suggested housing America's most ruthless and violent offenders there, saying, "When we were a more serious nation in times past, we did not hesitate to lock up the most dangerous criminals and keep them far away from anyone they could harm." He went on to say that he is directing the Bureau of Prisons, the Department of Justice, FBI, and Homeland Security to substantially enlarge and reopen the prison. The federal prison at Alcatraz housed notorious U.S. criminals, such as Al Capone, before it closed in 1963. It was billed as America's most secure prison, given the island location, frigid waters, and strong currents. It closed because it was too expensive to continue operating, according to the Federal Bureau of Prisons website, in large part due to its island location. It is now one of San Francisco's most popular tourist destinations. Former House Speaker and California Democrat Nancy Pelosi downplayed the Republican president's plan on X, writing, "Alcatraz closed as a federal penitentiary more than 60 years ago. The president's proposal is not a serious one." As he returned to the White House from Florida, President Trump told reporters that reopening the prison was just an idea I've had and decided to act on. "It's a symbol of law and order," he said.
And with that, we end tonight's broadcast. For everyone here on NET25, I'm Alma Angeles. Thank you all for joining us. Good night.